The story of the disciples on the road to Emmaus is, I think, my favourite Bible story. And in checking my sermon file, I realised that it was the passage that I preached on for the first time at St Matthew's 3 years ago. So I guess it's a little bit about my life at St Matthew's as well. And I think it's my favourite passage, well, partly because it's so beautifully written and it's a nice kind of long story and you can kind of get into the mood of it. But also, it's about what I get to do during the week. Talking with people, walking alongside people, unpacking the scriptures, and breaking the bread. But the passage is not just about priesthood, it's about our community gathered around our table and our common journey together. Our two companions walking the road to Emmaus this morning begin in a place that most of us, I would think, know well. They're feeling lost. They're feeling despairing even. In telling the stranger what is wrong, they say, "We had hoped. We had hoped he was the one. Like, we had hoped our father would improve. We had hoped she wouldn't be made redundant. We had hoped for a better outcome. We had hoped things would turn out a different way. We had hoped." They're lost. They don't know what to do. The one who gave them the hope for the future of their people, their prophet, who seemed, they said, to be mighty in word and deed, well, he'd turned out not to be so mighty in word and deed after all. So what are they to do? And then this mysterious stranger joins them on the road, and they don't recognise him, they don't know him. They had known Jesus well, it seems. They had listened to his teaching, but they don't recognise him now. This post-resurrection Jesus is quite different, quite changed. The stranger listens to their tale, and then he does some teaching of his own. He talks about Moses and the prophets to them. Perhaps he explained that God was never going to give them the triumphant victory over the Romans they wanted. Moses might have had that victory over the Egyptians long before, but that was followed by 40 years in the wilderness, remember? Where the people were fed with bread, manna from heaven they called it. Perhaps the stranger explained how Elijah was chased out of town in fear for his life. But remember that widow who gave him her last piece of bread. Maybe he spoke about Isaiah, who had spoken of a servant who would suffer with the people and not bring them the victory they imagined. The stranger taught Cleopas and his unnamed companion as they walked along, and still they didn't recognise who it was. But they asked him to stay because the day was ending. And the word used here, stay, is often translated abide in other places in the Gospels. Abide with us because it's almost evening. It means more than stay, it means be with us, let us know you, abide with us a while. And the stranger stays, and they gather at the table for a meal. And they asked the stranger to bless the bread, as was customary. And so Jesus took the bread, blessed it, and broke it, and gave it to them. He took the bread, he blessed it, he broke it, and he gave it to them. And in that moment, they recognize him, they see him, they know him. He took the bread and blessed and broke it and gave it just like he'd done at the Last Supper, just like he'd done in the sharing of the loaves and fishes with the crowds of thousands. Those actions of taking, blessing, breaking and giving, they're actions that Cleopas and his companion recognised. And we know these actions. We share them together every week in the Eucharist. Those actions are what binds our community together. And in 3 years of sharing the Eucharist with you, I have come to know you and you have come to know me. But much more importantly, in knowing you, I come to know Jesus. Knowing God, discovering the divine, is something that we do in community. Apart from maybe a few hermit monks, no one can get to know God alone. We need each other. And we don't get to pick and choose who is part of our community, just like you don't get to pick and choose who's part of your family, because all are invited. Today, some of our members have cooked food for lunch at the City Mission, and so today our table is extended even further. Our life as a community needs organising, and so today we commission our vestry, the group of people to whom we have given the responsibility of leadership and governance in our parish. They are the group who make decisions on our behalf, and they help set the direction of where we're heading. And they take on the responsibility of worrying about the building and the finances, all of things which are essential for our community life. Today, we also restart our annual stewardship program, seeking your financial commitment to the parish. And you have this generous spirit brochure which has been given out to you today. You've elected our vestry, and now we need to give them the tools to do their job. Please read the brochure. Think about your commitment. Think about what you can do to support our community. That job belongs to all of us. We're all called to play our part. Our Emmaus story is about community, but it's also about being on the road together, going somewhere together. This week I'm literally going on the road because I'm going to begin my sabbatical, which will last for 2 months. I'm very grateful 3 years into my ministry here to be able to go on the road for a while, to see what is out there, to reflect on what is back here for the benefit of our journey together. I'm going to be in New York and Washington DC and Toronto and Chicago, visiting churches from whom we might learn something, churches that are a bit like us. I'm going to be looking at urban ministry projects. I'm going to be talking about marriage equality with people in Canada and in the US who have led their church to the point of the yes to marriage equality. So I'm going to be asking them, how did you get that over the line? And I'm going to be stretching my brain for a couple of weeks at a seminary in Chicago. I'm looking forward to meeting strangers on the journey who will become companions. And I'm looking forward to seeing colleagues and friends who are already companions on that journey. I hope and pray that I will recognize Jesus in those many places and that my heart will burn for what I see. And I know that I will look forward very much to being back here again in 2 months' time to break bread with you and to recognise Jesus once again in our midst. And my prayer for you while I'm away is that every week and every day, as you gather here in community, that your hearts will burn and that you will recognise Jesus in the breaking of the bread.